Olá, queridos unschoolers. I know that many of you have an issue with making small talk in Portuguese, so knowing how to break the ice, make that chit chat with a neighbor or whoever, maybe the mother-in-law, is important because it's a way to start the conversation, and if you're at a loss for words, it doesn't help everything flow. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to learn 30 new ways of breaking the ice. Half of it is going to be about how are you? Another 15 expressions on how to talk about the weather, because let's face it, any culture will talk about the weather at the beginning of a conversation, right? So if you're excited about this, give it already a like and subscribe. Before I start, something I want to mention is that, don't worry if you don't yet feel confident about using these expressions, or if you don't really have the chance of practicing them, because really with the language it all starts with listening. So if you're able to recognize them, so listening to conversations around, on TV, wherever you consume content in Portuguese, it's already quite powerful. So I would say this is advice from a polyglot, should be worth something, right? Olá, tudo bem? Tudo e contigo. So here literally what it means is hi, everything well, everything, and with you. And this is the informal way of speaking. If you are being formal, then you would say consigo. So it's softer than when you're talking more formally in Portuguese, consigo instead of contigo. The T sound, at least to my ear, sounds slightly more aggressive, let's say. Então, o que é feito? Olha, acabei o curso. So here, então is one of those filler words we use a lot. And notice I didn't quite pronounce it então, I said tão, então. It starts with a slight nasal sound and then tão, então. So we start out sentences a lot like that. So então, o que é feito? What is made, what is done? It's one way of asking what's up. What have you been up to? Olha, again, it means look, informal. But it means, and then something, whatever the answer here was, I finished my degree. You could say whatever it is, of course. The olha is, again, sort of a filler word. You say, listen. O que contas? Nada de especial. E tu? So, o que contas means, what do you tell? So, again, sort of a what's up. And then nada de especial means nothing special. E tu, so nothing special. And you, how about you? Como é que tens estado? Cansada, muito cansada. Tenho tido muito trabalho. So here it's how have you been? But I don't say, remember the verb estar in Portuguese, we often don't pronounce the beginning of the word, so we skip the sh and we just say tão, estado, in this case estado. Como tens estado, then we link the two, the last two words. And then we say, in this case, cansada. Because I'm a woman, I reply cansada. If I were a man, I would say cansado. So tired, very tired, muito cansada. And then what did I say? Tenho tido muito trabalho. So I've been having a lot of work. Estás bom? Tô, e tu? So estás bom, it's again the verb estar. So I skipped the beginning of the word. The most correct way of saying it would have been estás bom. So I'm being informal again. That's why you hear that sh at the end of the verb. Estás bom. Because I'm talking to a man. If I were talking to a woman, I would say estás boa or estás boa. And then the answer, again, I'm skipping the beginning of the word, of the verb. So I say tô, I am, we just say I am. E tu, how about you? Como vai? Vou andando. Here, how are you going? And here the vai is formal. And then the answer, vou andando, I'm going. How are you going? I'm going. What it means is, you're not doing, not too bad. Let's say it's the English, not too bad. Como é que tem passado? Estou melhor, mas ainda me dói o pé quando o apoio no chão. So here, in case you haven't noticed, I'm being formal. Como tem passado? Tem is the third conjugation. So how have you passed? Not passing away, it's just past. How we say it. And then estou melhor. So it's actually estou melhor, but again, I hardly ever pronounce the beginning of the verb estar. So I am better, melhor. So my foot still hurts. O meu pé ainda dói when I put it on the ground. O meu pé, how did I say it? Mas ainda me dói o pé quando o apoio no chão. But my foot still hurts when I put it on the floor. Como está? Estou bem, obrigada. Here again being formal because está is a third conjugation, and it's a very also simple way of asking someone how they are, very formal. And in case you didn't notice, in this case I did pronounce the beginning of the verb estar. I said como está because I'm being more formal, so that requires my Portuguese to be a bit better. So how are you, literally, and then estou bem, obrigada. I am fine, thank you. I said obrigada because I'm a woman, although I'm sort of allowed to also say obrigado, because in fact, if we don't put a lot of stress on the O at the end of the word obrigado, then you don't really can't quite distinguish if I'm saying obrigado, obrigado. It's just not that relevant. Como está? Como está? This is a very awkward way of asking someone how they are. Again, being formal, so the same question as just before. The weird thing is that you answer with a question. So the person asks, how are you? And you reply, how are you? This is awkward, but believe me, I've had this. When I was living in Poland, I was working as an accountant, and I was working for a while with the Portuguese client, and I would call them that end of the month, closing month end close. And the woman she was from the north, and she would always, I would ask her, how are you? And she would, como está? And she would reply, como está? It's like, okay, fine. I don't know how you are, but let's continue. Let's get to business. Tudo bem com a senhora? A gente acha que sim. I love this one. I've only recently heard it for the first time, and I find it hilarious because tudo bem com a senhora, so we've seen that, so all well with my lady, com a senhora, and then the reply is a gente, so literally the people, but it means we. So it's the French it's a singular way of putting everyone in the same bag, and it's talking about one thing, but it means a lot of people. We. A gente acha, that's why the verb is third person singular. A gente acha, finds, que sim, finds that yes, or thinks that yes, we are okay. So it's a funny way to, of course it's formal, but the reply, I find it hilarious because it's a way of saying, I have no clue how I am, but you know, I guess I'm okay until further notice. Moving on to weather expressions, which, as you know, are also icebreakers. Every culture will like to talk about the weather, so small talk, it's important to know what to say. And bear in mind that there might be expressions you're looking for in Portuguese that, you know, as translations from your own language, but if you come from a cold country, it might not exist. We don't have a lot of vocabulary about snow or cold, you know, icy cold weather. So bear in mind, sometimes translation will not work because of culture, weather, and all that. Então, bafo que não se aguenta. So, tá, instead of está, bafo. Bafo is like, when someone has like, it's like breath, you know, if I have like bad breath, I say, bafo, cheira mal. Bafo que não se aguenta, you can't stand it. Aguentar something is to stand something. So normally you say in the negative, isto vai chover. So literally, this is going to rain. What you get from this is, so isto, I'm saying this, but you know, I'm not saying feminine or plural because I'm not referring to something specific. Of course, it's the weather, but it doesn't matter here. Is going. You learn how to say the future in Portuguese in the informal way we use it. So vai, we use the verb to go, and then infinitive, vai chover. This is going to rain. So, you know, you're looking up at the sky and think, oh, it's about to rain. Eles dão chuva para amanhã. I love this one. It's my very favorite because, you know, that's the preciousness of analyzing and then, you know, transmitting the knowledge of the experience of your own language, is that you start realizing how your people speak. And the fact that we say they give rain for tomorrow is amazing. So it's not, you know, rain should be seen as a gift, right? It's water we needed, the plants needed and all that. But it's not that the Portuguese are very fond of rain, generally speaking. So, eles dão chuva para amanhã. Because we have para amanhã, para is a word we often say para or pá. So, eles dão chuva para amanhã. I said para amanhã because it ends with an A and then amanhã starts with an A. Two vowels, they sort of like clash. It's just easier to speak that way. It's good to be aware of this, where we bind words in Portuguese, because as I hear all the time, European Portuguese, but the Portuguese speak very fast and they bind words all together and you can't tell what is a word, what is the next. So maybe you should check this video next. It will help you with that. Tão frio do caraças. Tá frio. There you go. I didn't pronounce está frio. I said tá. So it is a cold do caraças. Do caraças is sort of like a swear word, but not a big one. It's one, it's acceptable to say, perhaps not in front of an old lady. Still, it means it's really cold. Já não aguento esta ventania. So, já, it's a word we use a lot, and it's important to know when we use it, their meanings. But here, literally, it means I can't stand this wind anymore. So, anymore is já, now, don't. Aguento, stand. Remember, just in another expression, I use this verb, aguentar, is like can't stand. And then ventania. So you might have learned the word for wind, and it's vento. But if it's like windy, it's a lot of, the wind is blowing outside, you will say ventania. Almost like making it vento bigger, like, little house, big house, something of the sort. Não ouviste a chuva ontem à noite, choveu torrencialmente. So, talking about rain, não ouviste a chuva ontem à noite? Didn't you hear the rain last night? Choveu torrencialmente. It rained heavily. So, torrencialmente. Really, you're being very dramatic here. Hoje de manhã estavam uns 2 graus, gelo. So, this morning it was around 2 degrees. And ice. Literally, that's what we say. So this morning was about hoje de manhã, estavam, I didn't say estavam, estavam uns 2 graus, about, around. So we use the indefinite article, uma, uns, umas, to say the English word for couple. It means it was very cold. Vou dar mergulho, estou a morrer de calor. Vou dar mergulho. I'm going to give a dive, literally. So, vou dar, verb, to go, and then the infinitive. So, I'm going to give, in this case, mergulho. Mergulho is when you dive. Estou a morrer de calor. Estou, or tô, a morrer de calor. I am dying of heat. So, again, we also are very dramatic about the heat. We also say we're dying. Amanhã vai chegar aos 40 graus. Tenho saudade do inverno. So if you're sort of fed up with the summer and the heat, you can saying that you miss winter is important, because the word saudade, as you might already have heard, is very ingrained in our culture. You're very dramatic, melancholic about something you miss from the past. So in this case, amanhã vai chegar, amanhã vai chegar aos 40. So tomorrow it will arrive at 40, that's how we say it. Amanhã vai chegar aos 40 degrees, of course, 40 degrees. Tenho saudades do inverno. So I have a nostalgia of winter. Tão frio de rachar aqui em casa. Cold of cracking here in the house. So in case you don't know, in Portugal, it's very likely you will feel colder in the house than outdoors. So you'll see people in winter jackets in the winter, yet in the house, that's where you go where's my jacket? I need something now. It's quite a phenomenon in Portugal. Are you just starting out learning European Portuguese, or struggling in understanding the way we speak? Because as you've seen, I had things written down and I was saying them, perhaps you were like, why? I would never have written it like that, or would have never pronounced those words like that. If that's the case, then I would advise you to download my free year training down below in the description to help you get your ears used to the sounds of European Portuguese. It's super important in this language because we don't pronounce things as you would expect, as you see them writing. Same happens with English and other languages, so it's a good thing to start with that. So now that you've learned 30 new ways on how to break the ice with the Portuguese, hopefully you're going to be more prepared and less at a loss for words when you encounter friends or neighbors on the street. And so if it has helped you, give it a like and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and watch this video next explaining why we pronounce things the way we do. Eu vou estar aqui para a semana, também vais? Até lá!